First, unlike the SSD-S3, the UpperGrafx requires the Super System or Arcade card to be in the Q card slot for compatibility with those games. Not too big of a deal, but that's an extra expense that should be taken into consideration, and there's really no reason why it couldn't have just been integrated right into the UpperGrafx. Also, at that point, you might want to consider buying an EverDrive too, since the EverDrive can act as a Super System card as well as play ROMs.
Well, luckily, most everything the Turbo EverDrive does is redundant when you have an UpperGrafx, because they aren't really recommended to use together. And regardless, I did try that with my TurboGrafx 16. I was using it as a Super System card and ran into issues like in Castlevania, items would just open themselves, and had fewer issues when I used it on a actual PC engine instead with the UpperGrafx. And then the UpperGrafx just died, and we don't know for sure that it had anything to do with the EverDrive, but the replacement doesn't work at all with the EverDrive. I just get some scrambled, garbled stuff, and well, he recommended against it. Maybe he changed something to keep it from happening again, and that breaks EverDrive compatibility.
There isn't a Duo version or a TurboGrafx version of the SuperGrafx, so your choices here are limited. For me personally, I'd use ROMs and not install a region switch if I wanted to use a SuperGrafx, as I like to do as little mods as possible to such rare and expensive consoles. You'd need to purchase a CD unit to play original discs, but I think either a fully modified SSD-S3 or the UpperGrafx and an EverDrive might be the best option for SuperGrafx users.
Well, even though the SuperGrafx adds a second VDC, the pin on the back still only carries a video output from the first one, I guess according to PC Engine and TurboGrafx specification. And so you need to do a small little modification to get full graphics on a SuperGrafx game if you're going to use these together.
You can play pretty much the entire library of games and never worry about modding the console. If you're only playing on a flat screen, don't mind the convoluted way to get disk images on the device, and the aspect ratio doesn't bother you, this might be worth the money. Keep in mind you'd still need to buy either a Super System card or an EverDrive or the arcade card to play all of the disc games.
The UpperGrafx already supports U-card titles from SD card, and pretty much the only title I could think of that you'd gain by adding an EverDrive would be Street Fighter II.
So you'd probably just want to pick up maybe an EverDrive or an arcade card if you really just want to play the entire library. This might also be a good option for professional streamers as well, as you could RGB mod the console itself and connect that output to a CRT for gaming while using the UpperGrafx output to send 720p HDMI to your capture card without using any external scaler. This is completely safe to do since the internal RGB mod uses the analog lines and the UpperGrafx uses the digital lines, which are completely separate. I guess that would be the ultimate PC Engine experience though. The SuperGrafx with an internal RGB mod, an UpperGrafx, an EverDrive, and an arcade card. Heck, let's even throw in an original Super CD for people that want to use original discs, and capacitor replacements for both the console and CD drive. With shipping, you're pushing $2,000, which definitely isn't for everyone, but I guess something to dream about.
Alright, one more little surprise, but the internal virtual system card is just a standard Super System card, but like other systems with a built-in Super System card, you can combine that with the Arcade Card Duo, which is significantly cheaper than the Arcade Card Pro. Like, I got mine for around $50, and in the same period watching eBay, I've seen some clothes for $37, some $40. So, yeah, it's significantly cheaper than the $100, $150 that you might spend on an Arcade Card Pro. So those were the key things that I wanted to share as soon as possible, but I am working on an actual review and a user guide that deals with some of the difficulties that other people have had, because I've found my own ways around them, and I think it's relatively easy to use. Okay, so I'll keep working on the review and user guide, where I hope to cover things like how to copy your EverDrive set to it, and how to convert and copy the redump set of CD-ROM titles, or even how to convert random image formats you might find all over the internet for other things, because, for example, the redump set isn't complete and wouldn't include tools, utilities, translations, hacks, stuff like that.